Assalamu alaikum. Tragedy of Uyghur people is as serious as the tragedy and struggles of Kashmiris and Palestinians. Both have more or less the same population size, 10 to 13 million, and all these issues started around 1947, 48, 49. The only difference is that Eastern Turkestan, where Uyghur come from, used to be an independent country until China in 1949 invaded it, while Palestinian and Kashmiris were still under the occupation at that time. But somehow the Muslim community does not fully understand the Uyghur struggle. They see it in a sort of a geostrategic conflict between China and the United States, which is somewhat true. I mean, United States does not get into human rights case on anything all the time. For example, they will remain silent mostly on Kashmir or Palestine issue, but they will speak up on Uyghur issue. Well, as far as I am concerned, I am thankful at least someone is speaking up on this issue. But it is important for Muslims not to see it in a geostrategic competition perspective, although it is there. But that is not where the Uyghur tragedy and genocide started. Uyghur tragedy started when their government was taken away in 1949, and it continues. So right now, for a few years, United States is speaking up, and I'm tremendously thankful. My hope is the rest of the world speaks up. People are united on Palestine issue. They are united on Kashmir issue. There is not much of a dispute. But when it comes to Uyghur people of Eastern Turkestan, people seem to dismiss it. That is not good. Actually, China admits to most of these things. And there are camps, I call them the concentration camps. They are the largest concentration camps since the Nazis, except Chinese admit it. They call it education camp or re-education camp.
Assalamu alaikum. Right now, there are still millions of Uyghurs and other Turkic people of East Turkestan languishing in Chinese concentration camps and prisons, where they are subject to torture, forced assimilation, and execution. Thousands of detainees have also been transferred to parts of mainland China to never be seen again. Thousands of detainees have also forced to become modern-day slaves and to sew the very clothes that we may be wearing at this very moment. These detainees are also sitting ducks for the coronavirus. And outside of these camps and prisons, people are still living in massive forms of surveillance and are being stripped of basic freedoms like practicing their own religion and speaking their own language. We need to continue advocating for the Uyghurs and other Turkic people of East Turkestan before it is too late and before this genocide takes place.
Chinese ambassador to United Nations himself says, and it was recorded on an interview, video interview, television interview, calling that they want to normalize Uyghur people. What's wrong with the Uyghur people? Of course, they look different than the Chinese people. You're not going to go around fixing people's noses and ears. They eat different things, and they have a different faith. They have a different script, actually. So they are different people. So what does normalization means?
Muslims fast during Ramadan, and then they offer prayers on Eid Day and celebrate. But not in China, and definitely not Muslims in Eastern Turkestan, which the Chinese call Xinjiang or New Colony. Uyghur and other Turkic Muslims are not allowed to fast nor pray. The police actually go around before dawn raiding houses if the lights are on. The light indicates that someone is up early eating before fasting. However, this Eid, the Chinese Communist Party decided to fake the Eid. Yes, they created a fake Eid. Here is a clip broadcasted by Chinese state TV. Take a look before we break it down for you. The first thing to note is that this Chinese TV did not show any Eid prayers, because prayers are not allowed. That is consistent with the Communist China's policies. Second, Notice the musicians, which are placed at the top of the mosque. As a matter of fact, it is against the Muslim culture to have musicians at the top of a mosque. It is also against the concept of respect among Turkic Muslims, but the Chinese producer probably has not studied Islam deep enough. Here is an earlier video of the mosque. In this 6-year-old clip, you can see a welcoming plaque with a statement of faith in Islam. It was still there 4 years ago in this CCTV video, and there was no Chinese flag. Even in September 2017, the multicolored scriptural plaque was there, but then the Chinese flag was added. It shows how gradually the character of a mosque was destroyed. 2 years ago in 2019, however, that faith-based plaque, which adorned its main entrance, was gone. A Chinese flag is also installed at the top of the mosque. There is hardly any mosque in any Muslim nation which installs a national flag at the top of the mosque. This is simply not done. But in China, those mosques which still exist are forced to install a flag. And in some mosques, a photo of the Chinese president is installed where God's name is written on the mihrab. Kashgar is an ancient Muslim city and an icon for the Islamic civilization. The Chinese Communist Party has erased the historic Islamic identity. This Eid-Kah mosque was in the center of a bustling heart of the Kashgar. The Chinese demolished houses to create this plaza for tourists. The BBC estimates that 16,000 mosques are demolished in East Turkestan. Thanks to tourists, this mosque still survives. A former imam of this mosque was arrested in 2017 and sentenced to 15 years in prison. The current imam at the mosque, however, denies religious oppression by the ruling Communist Party. The mosque structure dates back to 996 AD. It has a capacity for 20,000 people to pray, but Muslims are no longer allowed to pray here. Here is Aiden Anwar from US-based Save Uyghur campaign. Her family from Kashgar is missing 93 relatives.
I'm an Uyghur Muslim, and right now I have 93 relatives in East Turkestan, also known as Xinjiang, who we deem as missing, meaning we've had no contact with them for the past 3 years. We don't know how many are in these re-education camps and whether they are alive or dead.
Kashgar is almost empty nowadays. Most of its people are in the largest concentration camp since the Nazis. They cannot even practice their faith, except when the Chinese government forces them to dance. Dancing for the party and no prayers for Allah.
This photo was not taken by any Western photographer from Chicago. This photo was taken by Chinese. It was published in Chinese papers. And this is the only photo of people in the concentration camps in Lob County, Xinjiang. Xinjiang is the other name for Eastern Turkestan. Xinjiang, literal translation will be New Frontier, but political terminology translation will be New Colony. This photo was taken in April 2017 and published in China by their papers. It is not taken by anybody else. Chinese officials have officially acknowledged in their papers, in their documents, that the birth rate of Uyghur people in Xinjiang has dropped almost 1/3 in 2018 as compared to previous year. What is going on here? This is what Chinese admit. You see, I'm talking about what they agree this is happening. How come? Rest of the China, despite two-child policy, which is little relaxed now, it used to be one-child policy, their rate is still growing. But Uyghur people in Xinjiang or Eastern Turkestan, their birth rate has dropped to 33% in 1 year? What is going on here? Whole lot is going on there, unfortunately, which will require a whole lot of time to talk about. Brothers and sisters, I'd like you to know one thing. I'm not anti-China. Actually, I appreciate that China is one country who brought 1 billion people outside the poverty. It is amazing. And those poor people must be very thankful for. Whole lot of world has not been able to do. But so I'm not looking for another Cold War or hot war. I'm actually an anti-war person. I'm a peace activist. I served on the executive committee of United Nations Anti-War Coalition. But denying what is genocide of Uyghurs is not going to bring peace to the world. I'm an eyewitness to this persecution. I saw the destruction of mosques from my eyes. There'll be big, huge pillar, actually way bigger than my 3-4 times the size, which will be just demolished. Just a little bit of base is left. I have seen that. Outside one of that place, I was talking to a person, and this was the time when mosques were still, you can still go in Uyghur place and go to masjid. And outside that masjid, I was waiting for to enter for Maghrib. This person was talking to me. And police force came with this force and grabbed him from his arm and took him away. Right there while I was talking to him. Any place, mosque I enter, as soon as I'm a block away, I turn around and I see so many officers in a plain dress taking interview of the person I just spoke to. And this particular handbook which you see, this is a poetry book. This person followed me, and he was sort of tall and well built, and his haircut was like an army type, and I thought, is this some guy, spy harassing me or something? So I looked towards him in a stern way. I saw tear in his eyes. So I softened myself. He took me to his small place, which was very small, barely about, I would say 6 feet to 8 feet, something like that. And he wrote verbatim, he recited a poem to welcome me and asked what Muslims are doing for us. And then I asked him to write down, he wrote down and gave me the whole handbook, which is handwritten poetry of this gentleman. And here you can see this sister is Zumrat Dawood. She is married to a Pakistani. Brother Imran Muhammad, I have spoken to them. Imran is a Pakistani. There are more than 50, 60, and probably larger number of Pakistanis who were business people, and they're visiting the neighboring place in Kashgar and Urumqi and different places in Xinjiang, and they married. So Pakistan has silently got their spouses released from the prison. So Zumrat Dawood, I spoke to her, and Imran was visiting Pakistan when Zumrat was taken in the concentration camp, and she was sterilized and all of that. And Imran was a brave person. He created a big fuss. He went to Beijing and started making a fuss, and Pakistani embassy finally helped him to get him released. So these are real people. They're here. You can talk to them. Brothers and sisters, it's not fiction. It's reality. And this brother, Umar Kanat, he's amazing. His father was a physician in 1949 when he got married, and they just arrested him. So he never knew that he has a son named Umar Kanat. And when they released him, he was already 9-year-old. This 9-year-old Umar Kanat, with his father and mother, walked for months because they were about to arrest him again. And that physician and they crossed mountains and desert and finally reached Afghanistan in safety. He has been a pillar of struggle for Uyghur people. At this moment, I'd like you to hear somebody who works with me. We started this project, Save Uyghur, at Sound Vision, as part of Justice for All. And Sister Sarvi Hussain, she is from Kashgar, the historic cultural place for Muslim, which is in the Iqbal's poetry and many other places. She leads the Save Uyghur project. Let's hear from her what is happening to sisters there. So, Sister Sarve Hussain, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. I'm honored to take today's opportunity to talk about how Uyghur women are suffering inside the occupied East Turkestan. Chinese government has never stopped its oppression and persecution of Uyghurs and other ethnic Turkic-speaking nations since its occupation in 1949. Chinese government renamed the region as Xinjiang, essentially meaning new colony. They utilize our rich natural resources for their economic development while keeping the East Turkestan underdeveloped. They deprived Uyghurs of their basic human rights and cracked down on every peaceful protest and turned them into bloodshed. As a child, I grew up hearing my mother's sad stories about how she suffered in labor camp when my dad was imprisoned by the Chinese government. My beloved father was called the Stinky Number 9, like many other Uyghur scholars, inside the Chinese prisons during the Cultural Revolution. My mother told me over and over again how Chinese Red Guards came in and burned the Qurans and the Uyghur classic literature manuscripts, which were cherished by my father dearly. They burned the Qurans right in our courtyard. When I heard these stories, I did not know that labor camps would come back, as titled as re-education centers, and my relatives would become the victims of Chinese government once again, as it is happening right now. As you might have known, the situation of East Turkestan worsened even more starting from 2016. Massive network of concentration camps were built in various locations of East Turkestan under the name of re-education centers for Uyghur people. Inside these camps, every Uyghur detainee is subjected to torture, abuse, interrogation, political indoctrination, organ harvesting, forced labor, forced sterilization, and forced disappearances. In the midst of such crisis, Uyghur women became China's biggest victims. Inside the Nazi-style concentration camps, they are subjected to sexual abuse by Chinese policemen. Chinese are known to compete for working for camps where Uyghur young women are the majority, according to the testimony of camp survivors. Starvation and arbitrary interrogation are daily phenomena in these camps. Personal sanitary items and their living conditions are inhumane. Uyghur women have become slave labor forces for Chinese government to make profit. Uyghur young women have been forcibly migrated to work in forced labor factories in East Turkestan and interland cities all across China under the name of employment and elimination of poverty. In these facilities, they are forced to work for extended hours. After work hours, they are mandated to attend political indoctrination classes, praise Xi Jinping, and sing rap songs to thank the Communist Party. They are not allowed to leave the dormitories and are guarded by the armed police 24 hours a day. Uyghur women are heartbroken mothers. Their children are stripped away from their arms and placed in state-run orphanages to raise them as Chinese. In these orphanages, children are not allowed to use their mother language, Uyghur language. Furthermore, these facilities are known to be crowded and the children are underfed and undercared. Uyghur women are forcibly deprived of their birthright. Uyghur women between the age of 14 to 50 years old have to undergo mandated birth control procedures, such as tubal ligation and IUD in designated hospitals and community clinics. Such facilities are usually known to have poorly trained medical staff and poor sanitation, which put Uyghur women at high risk of contracting diseases or developing unsafe conditions after the procedures. Uyghur women cannot choose what to wear and how to wear their clothes. Hijabs and headscarves were forbidden by the government a long time ago. Now they were not even allowed to wear long skirts. Under the so-called twin relative policy of Chinese government, Uyghur women are forced to live as Chinese men under the same roof. While their husbands are suffering inside the China's concentration camps and the jails, they are forced to live together with Chinese men and constantly surveilled by them. Forced marriage is another project that Chinese government is carrying out throughout East Turkestan to change the demographics of the region. Chinese military members, Chinese men from innerland are encouraged to marry Uyghur girls with the promise of free housing and job opportunities. Uyghur women's dignity has been trampled under the Chinese regime to the ultimate degree inside and outside the concentration camps. In response to this, US, UK, Netherlands, Canada, and several other countries have already declared what Uyghurs are going through is 21st century genocide. Uyghur women are pleading for solid action from the world, but little action has been taken. Therefore, today, I ask you, dear brothers and sisters in Islam, to be Uyghur people's voice, Uyghur women's voice, and push your government official to take action to support Uyghurs and stop this genocide.
As you saw in Sister Sarvi's talk, sisters are in real difficulty. In all war, it is the women and children who suffer the most. It is real. I can tell you many stories of brothers and sisters, especially sisters. One sister who met me found out I care for human rights. She came to meet me in Toronto area. And she has 3 sisters. All 3, their husbands are taken to the camps. And those sisters, they have Chinese men placed there. And all their children are taken to the Chinese orphanage while parents are living. I was so shaken, I had difficulty even sleeping. So sisters are going through a lot. This sister is Hafiza of the Quran. Her name is Ruqayya Farhad, that is. In 2009, she was detained. Her crime? Illegally teaching Islam.
When I was about 12 years old, I was told that my father was tortured and killed in a Chinese prison, and his body was returned to us. Because I was so young at that time, I did not realize what was happening or why. My brothers and I kept studying religion as we grew older. In 2008, by the end of the year, my brothers were arrested. What reason were they arrested for? Well, they were studying religion and they were also teaching it to other students. They also used to pray and read Quran on a daily basis, and that was the reason they were arrested for. We had no freedom of religion. Even before they were arrested, the Chinese authorities made life very hard for us. They used to come and go to always threaten us. They arrested my brothers, as I said, by the end of the year, and finally I was arrested in 2009. The crime they were accused of was that they were teaching religion illegally and practicing religion illegally. The authorities wouldn't let us see my brothers after the arrest. We went to the prison multiple times to beg them to at least see them, but however that was not possible. When I was arrested in 2009, I was arrested with other 16 students. We were tortured many times, and among us there were young boys and girls. Were you studying with them together? Yes, I was studying with them. Chinese authorities arrested us at nighttime and locked us in a cold room. There was nothing in that room, just cold concrete floor, and they started interrogating us after 2 days. I was very young at that time. I was only 16. One thing that I remember from my father, he was always telling us that the Chinese authorities are very cruel and we should not tell them anything or give them any information, because once they get what they want, they will still turn around and do what they intended to do. Therefore, we should not surrender ourselves to them. With these in mind, I did not answer them. Even if they were asking my name, I would express my unwillingness to surrender. There were so many questions, like whom did you hang out with? Whom did you see? Whom did you get acquainted with? Who came to visit your brothers? For those who were willing to cooperate, though, they had a softer policy. However, for those who refused to tell them anything or give them any information, we were categorized as defiant, and we were required to memorize a questionnaire which had 56 questions in it. The first question was, does God exist? We all believed in God, and I never said that God did not exist. The torture got more and more severe as we did not surrender. They had a torturing room equipped with electric shock torturing equipment. People, especially, let's say an ordinary Uyghur, cannot imagine that they would have these type of torturing methods, because, like, they wouldn't have seen it or heard of it. And even if they hear it, it might just sound like a story because they don't see it, right? If you don't see it, you don't believe it.
You see, in communism, Islam has been kept alive by illegal teaching. What is illegal teaching? You just go home by home and you teach Quran to people. She is a Hafiza, her father was a Hafiz, her 3 brothers were Hafiz. She's the only survivor. They killed her father, Hafiz. They killed her brother, Hafiz. And 2 of her Hafiz brothers, they shot them through firing squad while they forced Sister Farhat to watch them. And that sister was raped to the level that twice she became pregnant, and then they forced abortion on her. There's a terrible tragedy going on. It has been there for a while, before America and China became friends, and before they started competing with each other. It is going on for a while. You go around in Hajj, you see different shopkeepers, they look little different and eyes are different size. They're Turkestani, they are called. They're Uyghur people. I was meeting in a conference and I realized this person could be Uyghur only to find out he's a Saudi. But he's Uyghur person who has been there for almost a family has been there for 50, 60 years. My neighbor Haji Turkestani, he came in the 40s. Of course, I was not even born because the persecution started. My class fellow, when I was going to madrasa, was Awuz Bilal. He was Uyghur, a Turkestani. So this thing is going on for a while between these people and communists. The reason it is going on is that whole Turkestan was divided by the Soviet Union and the China. China occupied the eastern Turkestan. When Soviet Union went down, the countries became free. So now you hear Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, all they were part of the Soviet Union. They now became free. Eastern Turkestan is still suffering through genocide. They have a crime. The crime is asking for freedom. They were free in 1949, but then they were occupied. Is it too much, brothers and sisters, for you to understand that it is not a fake news created by America? It is going on for a while. Chinese have done that for a while, and Chinese continue to do that. I know Kashmir struggle is old struggle, but they are still struggling. Palestine, just yesterday I saw how many people were arrested and 2 were shot, 1 died and one survived. Should we just abandon them because America is not speaking? Or we should abandon Uyghur people because America is speaking? I wish America could be equally concerned about human rights in the world. But you and I are not the government. We are first-class citizens in America, and we are first-class Muslim. We must stand up for peace, justice, fairness, and equity at home and abroad. Speaking truth is the best thing we can do to get into Jannah, inshallah. And if Allah wills, these people will be free in our lifetime. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.